Centro de Confinamiento del Terrorismo. And if you translate this to English, you get Terrorism Confinement Center. Or for short, you could just call it CECAT. CECAT is a massive prison that's the size of 7 football fields, and it could hold 40,000 prisoners. You might ask, how do they fit 40,000 inmates in a prison like this? It's because they put them inside shelvings rather than cells, and we will show you in a minute what they look like. If you've seen our video about the most dangerous country in the world, you're very familiar with El Salvador and its leader, Bukele. Nayib Bukele turned the most dangerous country in the world to the most safe country in Latin America in a few years. He basically collected all the cartel members, all the mafia members, and the criminals that made the streets filthy and put them all under one roof. And that's why they call these guys terrorists rather than criminals. Bukele ordered to build the CECAT prison just because he knew there's a lot of criminals and gang members in this country, and he didn't want to run out of space. You could say the officers or the prison guards do not count these people as human, they look at them as less. And that's why they refer to these guys as terrorists. Right now we're in the middle of nowhere in El Salvador, where the CECAT prison is built, because it's very far away from the city. Before we enter the prison, let's see how we get to it. If anyone wants to get close near the building, they have to pass 7 checkpoints. 7 checkpoints that start from about 1 kilometer away. Even if you're a reporter, they still have to inspect you heavily. They also inspect the entire car so you don't have any contraband or anything illegal that you might sneak into the prison. After every filter, it gets a little simpler, but they still do the proper inspection. And they do this so just in case if there is an officer that's bought and paid for, they will get caught in the next filter. So you have to buy thousands of officers to get away with it, and they can't do it anymore. This causes no drugs to enter this facility, no cell phones, and any other illegal thing that you can easily bring to any other prison in the world. Entering the prison itself has its own stations. It's kind of like going through the airport, as long as you're just a reporter or a regular person. Anything you have in your pockets, including your cell phones and electronics, they will take it and they will return it to you when you leave. So you can't have all these things on you while you're inside the prison. What you're seeing is what the reporters go through, not the prisoner itself. You have to note that in the CECAT prison, there is no in-person visit. It doesn't matter if it's your mother, your wife, or your kid. You are not allowed in there to see the prisoner. Even lawyers are not welcome inside the prison. If they want to talk to the prisoner itself, there is like a Zoom call meeting room where the prisoner sits down and they talk to a TV with a webcam on them. This form of communication is only meant for the lawyer, so they can't talk to their family or friends like this. Inside this prison, there are the strongest jammers you've ever seen, because you will literally get no internet or cell phone signal. And the guards and prison workers have their own system that they communicate with each other. That's kind of like a walkie-talkie that does not jam up. Since it's so hard for a reporter to enter this prison, how hard is it for a prisoner itself to enter it? The prisoner has to get completely naked, and they put his full body inside an X-ray machine to completely check all his insides. After everything is controlled, they give him a set of clothes, a sheet, and a towel. And they take him inside looking like this, where they have to look down. The prison guards that are on the floor itself do not have guns, but they do have riot shields and batons. But of course they're not going to give them guns on the floor just in case anything hits the fan. Up on the top where you see where the fence is located, that's where they look down with rifles, and if anything goes down, they will shoot from above. The cells are completely different from any other prison too. There are massive rooms, and they do not have beds, they have shelves. It's kind of like going to Costco, but prisoners sleep on them. You do not have any sheets, no mattress, not even a pillow, just in case you want to hide something. You're not allowed to. So it's a very uncomfortable ride. There is only one toilet inside this prison that doesn't have a wall, so you have to use it in front of everybody. And there is no real shower. There's basically a little pond where you can wash yourself and clean yourself. you can also wash anything you have inside this pond, and they can dry themselves off with that one tiny towel they have. In El Salvador, you have executions, but this is only for war criminals, and this does not apply to these terrorists. So these guys have very heavy sentences. Most prisoners in SECAT have 1,000-year sentences, but some of them that are not as guilty have 20-year sentences. But that's a very tiny amount of them, maybe 1%. But we have to mention that no one has been released from the SECAT prison yet, because it only started 1 year ago. Inside the SECAT prison, you have very bright, massive lights everywhere that never turn off, even at night when you're trying to sleep. The prisoners that sleep on the top have this massive lights on their eye permanently, and that's why they probably sleep with a towel over their eyes. You could say having the light on permanently is a torture itself, because it kind of makes you angry when you have a very bright light always on top of you and you don't see darkness. And another problem is that you don't know what day it is, what time it is, and you don't really see when the sun sets and sun rises because there's no windows. When you compile all this together, that makes the prisoners suffer even more, and that's exactly what the leaders want. When the prison door is shut, there's always prison guards looking inside the rooms, and they pretty much never take their eyes off just in case anything wants to go down. And up above, there are prisoners that look down on the prisoners because there's a mesh platform that you can completely see the inside of. So that means you can literally not do anything without the guards seeing. If you're able to step outside this prison, but of course no prisoner has done this, there are these types of gravel that are engineered in a way that make a whole lot of noise. So if you walk on it slowly, fast, or anything like that, it will make a very loud noise. Outside the prison wall where the gravel is, there are 3 damn walls. There is a fence, a massive wall, then another wall, and then the largest wall of them all, which is a 9-meter tall cement wall. And also above that, it has a 2-meter fence that has electricity running through it permanently. So you could say escaping this prison is impossible. Even if there's a few crooked cops or officers inside the prison that help the prisoners, there's no way they can get them through, at least without getting caught. Every day 10 by 10 people, they separate them, cuff their hands and legs, and they take them to the main area so they can exercise for about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes, they take them back and grab another 10. Inside the hallway they go, there is natural light so they can at least feel the sun. All the prison guards have their faces covered, and that's obvious because the prisoner could see their face and maybe put out a hit on their family. You never know, because these prison guards have lives in El Salvador too. Before Nayib Bukele took over the country, you could say these cartel members and mafias ran the whole country, and they massacred any regular person. So the people of El Salvador are terrified of these guys. Any prisoner that wants to get taken out of the cell, they will cuff them before taking them out, and then they're released. Sometimes when multiple people need to get out, they cuff them together so there's no chance of moving around quickly. El Salvador says if you want to truly see what these guys are capable of, when you see 10 of them working out, you have to know these guys are probably responsible for 200 deaths in El Salvador. So don't think that these are ordinary criminals. For them to be able to work out in the hallway when they take them out, they take the cuffs off. But prisoner guards literally surround them every square inch so they can't even move out of the way. There's a very easy way you can tell which cartel or mafia group these guys were involved with. And the most common one is MS-13 because they literally have a massive logo tattooed on their body. Usually different mafia groups are enemies with each other on the outside, but inside this prison, they're located together and they can't even look at each other with an angry face, because they will be punished for doing that. You could say these guys are more scared of the prison guard rather than the gangsters next to them. Some reporters go inside this prison and sometimes complain, what kind of human torture is this? You guys are just torturing these guys. The people in charge of the prison gets very happy when a reporter says this, because they pinpoint a prisoner and pull out their entire folder to tell them what they have done to be here. Most of them are involved in rapes, kidnapping, murder, extortion, torture, dealing drugs, and anything you can imagine. Most of the times the reporters understand why these guys are in a prison like this. Just like we said, before Bukele came along, El Salvador used to be in these guys' hands, and they would eliminate anyone that got in their way. The people of El Salvador are so happy about Bukele's camp because they can finally take a deep breath in their own country without being terrified. So if one of these prisoners starts a fight, keeps on talking and complaining, or does anything that's out of the ordinary, what will happen? They will be taken to the hole, a concrete little room that's completely dark and only a hole where the light comes through. And this is the bathroom and shower. Depending on what they did, they will be here for a few days or maybe a few weeks and sometimes a few months. The prisoners are fed 3 times a day, and this is their food: tortilla, beans, and sour cream. Sometimes they feel bad for the prisoners and they need a little bit more nutrition and carbs, so they give them macaroni and rice. But this is rare, this is not an everyday occurrence. But the obvious thing is, these guys will never be fed meat. No chicken, no fish, and of course no red meat. The employees fill the food up in these plastic containers, and it's not like they have a lunchroom. They literally take these containers to the prison cell itself, and they have to pass it around themselves. When their food is ready, you have to bring it inside this little pond, wash their dishes, and put it on the outside so they can come collect it. You are not given a utensil either. You have to eat with your hands. Most countries in Latin America, like Brazil, if you go to their prisons, these mafia groups and cartel members run the prison. But Bukele has created a prison that's like no other. And he has collected all the criminals that you can think of in the country in one roof. The El Salvadorian government says this prison is nowhere near full. There's only 13,000 inmates, but we can fit 40,000. Just by saying this, it makes the country safer, because the criminals inside the country know that there's plenty of room for them to go inside this terrifying prison.